Now, welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Horse Lightning Takes. And let's get right to the news.
Alright, I have kind of a discussion topic I was going to throw at you out of nowhere. You know, like I do sometimes.
You like to do that, yeah?
Alright, so in regards to the Disney Plus live action Star Wars projects,
Yeah.
do you believe these projects, maybe part of their goal, part of their agenda, is to make the sequels more watchable?
I don't know that the Disney Plus shows are doing that.
I feel like they might be.
Long term, maybe you go there. If they're never going to retcon them, which I don't think they will, then you eventually want to make them more palatable, at the very least.
Well, I feel like we're already paving the way.
Well, in a way, like I said, long term, yes. Thrawn could potentially come back. He's going to start a war. It could be that this war ends and that's how the First Order begins. That's how they get this armistice, how they get their own part of space. It could, again, long term, but that's really going to frustrate people when they... there are already people who assume that this is all setting up for the sequel trilogy, but it's going to frustrate and really make a lot of people angry if all the Mandoverse time period kind of turns into is set up for the sequel trilogy.
I feel like it already started that, though, by launching us into a point in the galaxy post-original trilogy where we think that the New Republic should be prospering, things should be going well, and they're constantly showing us Imperial remnants, Imperial warlords. Look at them, they're playing around with cloning technology.
Yeah. Well, you have to... If you are going to stay in line with the sequels, you can't have the New Republic become this prosperous, thriving republic, right?
But I'm wondering if overall, let's say 5 years down the road, we watch the sequels and they just feel a lot better because we've seen so much more setup into this galaxy.
Here's
we even saw Praetorian guards now have shown up.
Sure, but they were bad in the sequel trilogy. I think they were just kind of there. I would have preferred almost like the Red Guards where they never get used until Revenge of the Sith and Yoda just tosses one away. It was kind of funny because all they did in Return of the Jedi is just kind of stand there and then in theory they should be and are formidable, right? Otherwise Palpatine wouldn't have them as his personal bodyguards. But I don't know where I'm going with that other than to say, I don't even know why the Praetorians were in The Mandalorian. I don't know, why they were there.
Because Gideon wanted a couple, which we didn't know existed.
But where did they come from? Who made them and why and when? It's one of those things where it's that's kind of one of the frustrating things I find with a lot of what they're doing in the Disney Plus Star Wars. They just put things in there. And no, not everything needs to be explained. But sometimes you're like, well, why? Why did he want, a couple Praetorian guards? And why Praetorian
he already had those really badass dark troopers.
Yeah.
So why didn't he just have more of them?
Yeah, why not?
Because they were doing some work on Mando. He struggled to defeat one.
He already had this Beskar suit and everything. Why did you need Praetorian guards? They were kind of cool in the Mando with the Paz Vizsla fight, sure.
Yes.
It's not that they were terrible there.
But it's almost like I said, I feel like they're throwing more and more things into the Disney Plus shows because they want us to ease into the sequels better.
But what I was going to say before was you kind of asked or pointed out, will we someday, 20 years from now, after all this indoctrination, let's call it, where we've had the Mandoverse and maybe other things that lead up to it really well, just assuming it does end up leading to it really well, I don't think I'll ever watch the movies and go, yeah, that's a good movie. I'm being honest. I'm being completely honest.
Hey, next season of Mando, they're going to Kijimi.
It wouldn't stun me. I'm surprised they haven't been to Batu yet. Galaxy's Edge, essentially. That I thought for sure we were going there. But anyway, that's my honest thing. There's nothing for me that I'm ever going to watch The Last Jedi and go, wow, yeah, now I like this movie. It's sad. I may get to the point, they may someday be able to build it up where I go, okay, I guess. At least now you've built up Luke this way. I don't think I'm ever going to like that, though, right?
Right.
So it's one of those... I just don't know how you ever pull that off. I don't think I ever liked that movie. And just looking at the Rise of Skywalker, you can look at The Last Jedi and say, okay, that's a decent movie in some respects. It's not the worst made movie I've ever seen. I guess it's about as nice as I can be towards it. Sorry to those of you out there who do like it, but that's what I'll say. It's not like it's a terrible movie. It's got its flaws, it's got its inconsistencies and problems, yes. But it's not the worst movie. The Rise of Skywalker, though I like it more and can enjoy watching it more, It's a terrible movie. I don't know how you ever make sense of that movie.
I think it's the movie that came before it and the story they wanted to tell, they just didn't have the time. I mean, that movie alone should have been broken down into 2 movies to fully get what it was doing.
The Last Jedi did the 9th part of the saga no favors, right? It kind of just dead ends you. It's like, let's kill Snoke, and we'll have Kylo Ren kind of get rejected by Rey again after losing to Rey in the previous movie. Here you go, make a movie next. Like, bring back Palpatine.
It's a hard act to follow because you're going, no, you've killed my villain, you've squashed the potential for a new villain pair.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, how fast? I mean, I've said it a billion times before. Like, how fascinating is it if Luke doesn't die in the movie and Rey takes Kylo's hand? Like, we're living in a different Star Wars fandom right now.
Right, now you're relying on other characters now to rise up and try to save.
What if Finn was supposed to be, Finn rises, like Luke trains Finn. That was kind of one of my ideas. Like, Luke trains Finn to take down those two or to deal with those two, and they work together. Or, I don't know. There are a lot of ideas that if you don't kill Snoke, or even if you do kill Snoke, that's fine. You would have had to kill Snoke. And then you have Rey take Kylo's hand. It's like, wow, okay, where does this go from here? I'm interested. But as soon as she rejected him, I'm like, well, she's never going to lose to this guy. And he's going to be your antagonist in the next film? Like, give me a break.
And that's why they had to bring back another antagonist.
Yeah, they had to bring back Palpatine because they had no other choice. They neither had time to build anything new, nor could they really do anything with Kylo to make us believe he would actually defeat Rey.
Well, see, I'm curious because we saw Force healing, but we saw Grogu do it.
Yeah.
So we accept it, a lot more now because, there's another one who's done it. It's not just Rey. Then you move into Ahsoka and you're like, oh, well, Anakin's Force Ghost probably never really talked to Luke because it's in another galaxy helping Ahsoka with something, maybe.
I mean, I would assume if he has access to the world between worlds, which we see he does, he can just go anywhere he wants at any time. So I'm not sure that's an excuse, but yeah.
Yeah. Brendel Hux is working with the Remnant, so we've got the Huxes going on over there.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. I mean, you're right. Now that you really point out and remind me of those things that I maybe trying to block out, you're right. They are trying to set it up.
Pieces
of
the sequel trilogy in there.
Yeah.
That I'm curious if going down the road, like season 4 of Mando, are we going to get maybe more pieces? We have to see the horrors of the First Order. We hear about it in some of the books, they took over these star systems and they kind of treated their people almost as a slave labor.
Yeah, they were like taking children and kind of indoctrinating them and turning them into slave soldiers, essentially.
And we have to see what drives the New Republic into making the decision to armistice with them and be okay with what they're doing. As to why are they de-escalating their military? We have to get all of these pieces to understand. Well, going into the movie, be like, why did no one believe Leia? Why weren't people helping Leia fight the First Order?
Here's the absolute biggest problem. When J.J. Abrams wrote The Force Awakens, he didn't ask a single one of those questions.
No, he did not.
He just wrote a movie that he was like, okay, well, 30 years later, we'll just do some stuff.
Well, I'm worried that Disney Plus now is the one responsible for picking up the pieces and filling in the story gaps.
Yeah, oddly enough, or maybe arguably the most important thing, or one of the most important things they needed to do if they really wanted to capitalize off this 30 years, which, in between the 2 trilogies, the sequels and the OT, is figure out what happened during them before you even write the sequels. Because now you've taken this time period where you have Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewie, some of the best and most beloved characters in the franchise, and you've squandered that whole time period.
Yes.
You didn't give any thought to how you were going to use it later on, when that should have been, if you were thinking long term, which I don't know how you spend $4 billion on a franchise and don't think long term. How you think I'm just going to make a couple movies and we're going to be fine. Anyway, that's what they screwed up with the sequels. They totally screwed up this time period, among other things. And I just can't believe that. I can't believe they didn't think to themselves, okay, well, how do we get here? How are the heroes that people are going to want to read these stories or see these stories about these heroes, the heroes that they love, how they got to this point? And you had them all pretty much broken and in a state where we don't want to see Luke built up to giving up on the Jedi. We don't want to see Han and Leia built up to the point where they basically separate and they have a child that they just kind of, I guess you went dark side on us.
I know, I'm almost glad we haven't heard too much about them on screen because I don't want to see them separate.
That's the problem. You don't want to see what they become. Like, if they had still been heroes, you were like, oh, I'm kind of curious. What's the interim story? Like, how did they get to this point where they are still heroes, and what else have they done in that time? Now you're like, yeah, I don't want to know why Han and Leia break up.
No, now we're building up to what I'm going to call the Thrawn movie at this point in time. Because I feel like he is going to be the focal point of the story. He is bringing on some galaxy-wide conflict. He's going to have his army, the Imperial remnants. He's going to have whatever Night Sister army, if they're going to possibly join in the fray here.
clearly brought some kind of Night Sister army, yeah.
This has to bring in a Jedi response as well as a response from the New Republic.
Well, I've been saying, and some people say, no, they're not going to do it. I can't believe you don't bring in Luke Skywalker. And again, you have the problem of we know where Luke ends up, but at least try to give him something heroic here now.
Going to have an army with Force-powered witches, you got to bring in Luke. You need Jedi to balance this fight.
Otherwise, the question is, what is he doing? He's just going to sit there and build his temple?
No, he's going to help.
Yeah,
he's going to have to help. Leia's going to do what Leia does. She's going to rally the forces. She's going to be leading the charge. Han will be at her side, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we get Lando, too. I mean, that was another travesty of the sequels, bringing him into the 9th movie. And just kind of giving him a bit part.
Like I said, I think the Disney Plus series are having to lead us to this. Because after this movie, we're going to see that, maybe the reason the New Republic was so weak and had to agree to an armistice is because they were losing.
Yeah, that's
Thrawn's forces were too strong, and they put up a front and said, well, I guess we'll form and make an armistice with you. We don't know, but they could be very much setting up the weakness of the galaxy.
That's a fair point, but then it doesn't kind of explain why the First Order would go for the armistice, since in the sequels they seem hell-bent on destroying the New Republic. If they had them on their heels,
because if they lose Thrawn, they might lose hope that they can win. Or if they lose enough of their forces, they might be like, I guess we take the deal.
Thrawn, then, not the Ahsoka series Thrawn. They'll need to get a better Thrawn.
We haven't really seen this Thrawn do anything
yet. That's my point. His first impression was like, oh yeah, like I keep saying, he kind of ran out the clock and got the win. Mm-hmm. He was kneeling on the ball at the end of the game. Good job, Thrawn. But no, I again, now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. This is basically setting up the sequels, which is why I think Filoni takes us to another galaxy. Because now he has Ahsoka and Balin and the Mortis gods. He's got you there, and he's like, this is going to have nothing to do with what's going to go back on in the real galaxy. Mm-hmm. This ain't setting up no First Order or Grumpy Luke or nothing. This is a brand new story in a new galaxy that I can do whatever I want with.
So Mando can continue setting up the story of the sequels.
Which is why I wouldn't be surprised, and fingers crossed, I do hope Season 2 of Ahsoka is in the other galaxy, and Season 4 of Mando, or Rangers of the New Republic, or Thrawn's Big Day. They, whatever they do, wherever they end up showing Thrawn's story, I hope it is like separate from the next season of Ahsoka.
Right. Unless for some reason Ahsoka finishes her business in the other galaxy really fast and disappointingly fast, and I might say. And they immediately come back, and now she's like, and now I'll deal with Thrawn.
God, why could I see like the first 2 episodes of like season 2 of Ahsoka just being wrapping up everything with Balin and Mortis and then coming home?
Isn't that what they did to us in Mando? We thought this season was all going to be about getting down there, getting to visit Mandalore. And he was like, episode 1, I'm going to Mandalore, guys. I washed my armor. I'm good. We're like, really?
Yeah,
already?
we thought the whole season was going to be the quest, and it turned out to be like the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, that was like, quick.
It's not like poisoned or anything, even though, here's the thing, like we now know it got bombed like 4 or 5 years ago in story, right?
Yes, it was
that was a quick cleanup process, right? It was
pretty much we've decided that it took place during Operation Cinder.
Yeah.
The aftermath plans of a supposedly
don't use that term here. We don't reference that trilogy of books. But no, seriously, it does seem like it's been like a few years and the planet is already like cleaned up. When you watch Mando and you hear Bo-Katan talk about it, you feel like it happened like 10, 15 years ago minimum. You actually feel like it happened longer than that, but it has to happen at least
after
10
the
years.
war.
Yeah.
It's the only way that makes sense. It had to have happened after the war.
It has to, because that's kind of how it got referenced now. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all you got for me, I'm guessing, unless you want me to ramble for another 20 minutes about all this stuff.
You probably could.
I know, you got me on a roll right now. Now you're like, look, that all roads lead to the sequel store. Look. Yes, they do. And
it's not a terrible idea either. Try and ease you into it. Go, look, if we give you enough setup for what happened in the sequels, are we going to be okay with it?
Well, everybody asks, can they make like a Clone Wars style show for the sequels? Problem is, the prequels at their core are a great story already. And then the Clone Wars comes along and enhances that, and maybe kind of makes the movies feel a little better because they weren't executed perfectly. That's not what we have with the sequel trilogy. We have a terrible story at the core. Mm-hmm. We have three disjointed movies that really brought to us by different writers, directors that just don't kind of coalesce with each other. You can't like just make a show that's going to fix that. But anyway, that's all we got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below. Tell me what you think about anything and everything I had to say here. And let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, Thanks for watching.